Welcome to your Route to Wellbeing podcast. I'm Sue Fullergood, and I'm absolutely sure that you deserve to feel great, and it's possible for you to pulse with energy. So if you're not thriving right now, or if there's something that's interrupting your thriving, then maybe this podcast is just what you're looking for. I've tapped into the knowledge base of experts in the 11 domains of well-being. Each of the experts has something that I think is part of the crucial knowledge that you need to be able to really take care of yourself. And so listen in and see if you can get that magical piece of information that's going to make the difference for you. Please feel free to share this with your friends and family, whoever you think may benefit from it. Please push the subscribe button so that you can be alerted when future episodes are available. Thank you for listening. Hello, I'm Sue Fullergood, and I run the podcast, Your Route to Wellbeing. And the reason I do this is I'm passionate about sharing ideas that can empower you to take care of yourself and to feel absolutely terrific. I really do think that you can feel terrific and that you can be sustainable and have ongoing energy. And I want that for you. And to that end, I usually interview experts in various fields relating to well-being and download as much of their insight and information as I can from them. But on this subject of choice, I decided I was just going to speak to you myself. I just couldn't think of anybody in my immediate network who could speak to you about this. And I just heard myself saying it over and over again to people in my coaching clinic and in my treatment room. And I thought, you know what? This is something that needs to get out to the public. This is something I really want people to think about. And so I thought this week's podcast is going to come straight from me. Not a conversation, not a typical podcast, but it comes with the real intention to serve you and to give you the information that can help you really manifest the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and therefore the physical well-being that you crave and deserve. So let's talk about the subject choice. The first time I came across the idea of choice being a real thing, I was doing a parenting course with the late Ilse van der Merwe Alberts. And Ilse taught us as parents that we should really be enabling our children to be making choices that were suitable for them, that they were able to make given their level of ability to choose about their well-being. And she made it so clear to me that choice making is integral to well-being and that choice making is something essential to do in life. I didn't grow up that way. I don't know if you did, but we were never really given choices. We were told how things were going to be done and we had to go along with that. And even in my adult years, I almost never made a choice. I always did what I thought I should do. I always did what I thought was the right thing to do, was appropriate, would please everybody else in my life. I never made a choice for myself until I sat there in that parenting course and I thought about it, and I really realized I was going to start to live differently from then on so that I could teach my children to make choices about their own lives. So actually the study of choice making has been something I have been doing for 24 years because my son is about to turn 24 and he was just a tiny baby when I embarked on this parenting course. So for 24 years, I've been trying to teach myself to make choices at every turn. And I really am clear that actually every moment of every day, every hour of every day is in fact a choice. And how we live should be a choice. But what happens is, if we're not deliberately, consciously making our choices, is that our unconscious mind makes our choices for us, which is what I've already alluded to happened to me. And we don't realize when we come to a choice point. And so we land up unconsciously, when we're blind, deaf, and dumb, literally making a choice and arriving at a destination without having decided we want to go there. You must be familiar with this, just like I am. Suddenly you've eaten something that you didn't actually decide to eat, or you've had an extra glass of wine when you know you didn't really want to do that because you had to perform tomorrow, or you've agreed to do something for someone that you actually haven't got capacity or resource to do at the moment. These kind of choices are being made in autopilot by our unconscious mind. And it's these choices that I want to talk to you about today, so that we can bring them into your conscious mind and help you to make every single choice you make consciously and deliberately, so that you can get the outcome of your life that you want to get, and that you can spend your 24 hours and your available energy and resources the way you choose to spend it. So why should we make choices? And why should we make our choices deliberately? I think it's because it builds our self-esteem and our sense of self-efficacy. It gives us agency over our lives. And in so doing, it builds our self-respect. It builds our self-awareness, our understanding of what we want and what we believe, and of what we're doing. And it helps us to behavior change. So we don't land up just doing everything in autopilot habitually, which is exactly how our brain is designed to work regards choice. Because if it can commit almost everything to habit and do almost everything in automatic pilot, then we almost never have to think about that thing anymore, and we can retain so much more of our conscious awareness for self-protection. So the brain commits whatever it can to the unconscious mind, and it commits whatever it can to habit. And so we lose our ability to choose. We lose the chance to choose. Now, a lot of what we do unconsciously involves soothing ourselves. We feel inclined to do something about the angst or the tension or the challenge that we're feeling inside ourselves, the threatened state that we find ourselves in, the nervous system arousal, if you like, or the upregulation. These are all different ways to describe it. And the brain has to manage the body budget, and it needs to actually get you homeostatically into a calmer state so that it can save energy, because your brain doesn't know when you're going to run out of energy, when we're going to be in a famine or a state where there's going to be too little energy. Your brain needs to be able to conserve and preserve your resources, and in order to do that, it needs you to soothe yourself, to calm your inner state. So the unconscious mind throws up an idea at some stage. Now, whatever idea it throws up, maybe it throws up bite your teeth together, or maybe it throws up have a cigarette, or maybe it throws up eat a chocolate. But it throws up an idea, and if your brain finds that it soothes you and calms that inner state of arousal, then your brain is likely to suggest that the next time you go into that state. Often it's a completely unconscious process, and you're not actually aware that you were even aroused, because your brain solved the problem in order to manage its body budget. It's solved the problem automatically, and before you know what's happened, you've downed that chocolate or glass of wine in order to try to get you into a better state. The problem is the brain is constantly trying to predict what's required, and it doesn't have any vision for the future. It is literally looking for what you need to know in order to feel better and do better right now. It's got no real ability to critical think, or in fact it's got no ability to critical think or to work it out or to decide if actually the suggestion it's come up with is actually useful. And so you find yourself soothing yourself unconsciously. And what I'm proposing is that you don't necessarily want to leave it up to automatic pilot. You want to actually be able to choose, do I want to use this self-soothing modality that my brain has suggested, or do I want to use something that maybe is less expensive? So let's say that glass of wine, it might feel very good right now, it might soothe you down for the next hour or two, but tomorrow there's a cost because alcohol is a depressant. I'm not making alcohol wrong, but you want to be able to think it through carefully and actually be able to make a choice. Yes, I'm going to have a glass of wine, or no, I actually choose not to have a glass of wine because I'm choosing for how I'm going to feel tomorrow. So instead, I'm going to use some deep breathing or grounding techniques or something else to soothe me down. And this requires a degree of what I call impulse surfing. It's definitely not my word. It comes from much cleverer people than me. And it's a term I learned about when I studied mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, which I did very luckily through Harvard University over COVID, and I was really, really lucky to be able to do that without having to travel to the States for months and months, which is how long the course took. But anyway, one of the things that they really taught us while we were on the training is how to impulse surf, how to recognize an impulse to do something and actually just let the impulse pass by without needing to react to it or respond to it. And I think that is one of the most empowering things I've ever learned, apart from choice making, because once you realize that your idea comes up or the impulse to do something comes up and you don't have to respond to it, you can literally be the observer of it and watch it pass by and just surf it. And I love that word because it really it implies a sort of playful way of engaging with allowing something to just not be a thing, just not actually respond to the idea. I find it incredibly empowering and incredibly self-esteem building when I realize that I can actually impulse surf and I can say no to myself. So even if my brain has thrown up the idea of having a coffee when I'm tired, or watching another version of my series, another program of my series on Netflix, even if my brain suggests that, I can say no to myself. And I love the feeling of being able to say no and hear no and receive no and choose to do something else. So I don't know if you are making your yeses and nos inside your own head as conscious and deliberate as that, but I really, really invite you to try it because it is self-esteem building, it is empowering, it does give you self-efficacy. You know, my daughter taught me an awful lot when she was about 13. And she asked me if she could go to a party. And I said no. And she asked again, and I said no again. And then I heard her say to herself, but in my hearing, well, I've got about another 85 asks before she converts that to a yes. She probably didn't use the word convert. That's probably my word. But I was so shocked. I was so horrified to hear what she had to say. And it was only then that I realized that I was struggling to say no, mean no, and be immovable with my no. She, of course, being a child, found it very difficult to hear no and accept no. She had to learn that skill, and I, as her parent, had to teach her by being absolutely consistent with my no and making my no a very firm and immovable construct. So the question is, can you say no to yourself? Can you say no to anyone else? And can you hear no, from yourself or from someone else, and accept a no without trying to change a person's mind? It's a difficult one, and it's such a fun thing to start to work with inside your own head. One thing we do know is that deprivation doesn't work. It never works. So one of the strategies that I find many people try is to deprive themselves. And I was chatting to somebody in my coaching room yesterday who I was coaching, and she has a little bit of an eating disorder and a war against food. And so one of the strategies that she had used in order to manage her eating issues was to just not buy anything that was tempting to her. And now she'd taken that one step further. She only did online shopping so that she couldn't be tempted to buy anything that she wasn't supposed to be eating. And my comment to her was, deprivation never works in the long term. You can deprive yourself in the short term, but as you go through your life, you're going to find that deprivation fails. And it doesn't just fail, it fails with a rebound, because it's almost like I'm going to call it your inner wild child says, I've been deprived long enough and now I'm going to have everything and 1,000,000 times more of what I've been longing for and been denied. And so there's this rebound phenomenon that always comes in the face of deprivation. So I'm suggesting something slightly different, and it's not even discipline. It is a form of discipline, but discipline seems so controlling and so fun sapping and so energy sapping, and I just hate the sound of the word discipline. I grew up with that word, and I think it's got a lot to offer, but I think there's so much better ways of working with ourselves. And so what I'd love to offer you is negotiation with yourself. It's almost like you want to negotiate between your inner wild child and your inner dictator. You want to give the inner dictator exactly what it's looking for, which is success, order, the opportunity to succeed, the opportunity to get things done. But you also want to give your inner wild child some chance to play. That inner wild child just wants to feel good and have fun. And so we need to work with both those parts of ourselves, and we need to negotiate with them. So one of the things that comes when you get, for example, the impulse to have a chocolate or a bowl of ice cream, whatever it is to actually acknowledge your inner wild child who might be behind that suggestion that your brain has thrown up into your now conscious awareness, because hopefully you're not going to just find yourself one bowl of ice cream down the line before you actually become conscious again. But actually you can acknowledge, wow, okay, so this impulse has come up, this idea has come up, and I have a choice here. And it's probably my inner wild child that's been a little bit harshly treated for a while and needs a bit of fun and a little bit of spoiling. And so what am I going to do for my wild child? Am I going to give my inner wild child what it asks for, some ice cream, or am I going to negotiate with my inner wild child in a different way? So I might say, for example, I know you feel like a bit of playtime, but how about we jump into bed early tonight and watch a series of whatever the favorite series of the day is, Or how about we go and sit outside in the sun and just soak up a little bit of sunshine and listen to a song or two, something like that, and see if that could actually work for the inner wild child. I find my inner wild child never thinks of those kind of ideas, the price tag free, let's call them, ideas. It always thinks of the really expensive ideas. And by expensive, I mean those things that are going to cost you going forward, like eating the wrong foods that are not good for your well-being, or staying up late, or failing to get enough sleep, or get your work done, or whatever. My inner wild child always brings up the sort of costly ideas, and I try and negotiate with him or her, I don't know, I think it's a her, with some free ideas. And sometimes I find she can get satisfied, and she can say, yeah, that could work, as long as I've got something that's a treat to look forward to. But now this whole process has been brought conscious, instead of just allowing it to all happen in the dark recesses of your unconscious mind, and suddenly you are, all the way down the line, and you didn't actually think about it at all. So I think what I'm really trying to offer you as an idea is, what are you prepared to pay to be soothed down? Or what are you prepared to pay for anything? And we're not, in this instance, probably talking money, although you may be going on a shopping spree or buying something that you'd really like to have but can't afford, or something. But recognizing and actually looking at the price tag into the future, and understanding the consequences of that choice for yourself, is actually really, really vital. So that brings me to the next little sort of section of this choice making, and that's got to be around, where do you want to go? So let's say I wanted to manifest great health. And I'll give you, this is an example from my life. Right now, I am packing up my home after 18 years. I'm packing up my practice after 18 years. I'm building a new practice. I'm moving into my partner's home. Luckily, it's very close. But I've got a lot going on. At the same time, I'm doing a whole lot of talks for companies. I've got keynotes to prepare. I've just got so much going on. And therefore, I need to choose aligned to feeling great. I need to wake up every morning feeling terrific, with a clear head and lots of energy, in order to cope right now. And I need to manage my stress, because whichever way you look at it, moving is stressful. And so I need to really be deliberate about how I'm going to look after my own body and take care of myself. And therefore, I need to make my choices with the goal in mind. My goal is a smooth transition into this next chapter of my life, without damaging my health, and without taking too much strain physically or mentally, and without damaging any relationships along the way, and keeping all the balls firmly in the air as I go. I'm not taking time off, because I've had all the holidays a person could ever wish for this year already, and so I don't want to take time off. I want to see if I can do it just with a smooth transition. So that's my goal. It's very clear for me. Now, because I know where I'm going, and I know what I'm trying to manifest and achieve, it's easy for me to make my choices aligned to that. Who and what do I want to be in the short term and the long term? And if I can hold that at the front of my mind, then my choice making is very simple. Staying up to watch an extra episode of my favorite series is not going to be an option. I can hold that clearly in my mind. But maybe spending an extra half an hour in bed, in my nice warm bed, rather than going to gym, might be an answer. So because I know where I'm going and what I'm trying to achieve, it becomes so much easier for me to make my choices consciously. So who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And what is your highest good? Can you make your choices for that? And I think taking a little bit of time, taking some reflection time to actually work out, where are you going? What do you want in this life of yours? What do you want next? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to manifest? And I think spending some really quality time deciding that will help you with your choice making unbelievably. So some things you'll want to say yes to, and some things you'll want to say no to. But having this goal and this direction so clear in your mind, and having a clear picture of who you want to be, makes the yeses and nos so much easier to identify. And, just for example, the same lady that I was coaching yesterday shared with me that she really wants to lose weight. And therefore, for her to drink lots of alcohol is just taking her in completely the wrong direction. She wants to learn a little bit more and take the learning she's already been doing in her professional life to the next level. Well, alcohol is not going to take her in that direction. So it becomes easy for her to choose. Is she going to take a month off from drinking, or is she going to carry on drinking whenever it just happens to be offered to her? That's just an example. The same thing with food. If you want to lose weight, then it becomes easy to know what you want to order in a restaurant. Remember that your inner wild child can be a nag, just like my daughter could be a nag, and the inner wild child can ask just as many times as a child can, over and over and over again, driving you crazy, till eventually it becomes easier to just say yes, because you just can't face having that nagging going on in your ear. But I think that comes from not saying a very firm, immovable no to yourself. Let's talk about some of the examples of these choice points that might come up in your life. I speak to many people in my treatment room who really want to do some mindfulness or meditation every day. I teach mindfulness courses all the time, and I often find that the people report back that they've been busy and they just haven't had time to do their mindfulness. Now, that's a choice. Believe it or not, there's always time if you choose to make time. And I know I've grappled with that lots of times in my life, but it is the God honest truth. When, just for example, my mother was sick a few weeks ago and was rushed into hospital with double pneumonia, I had plenty of time to get on a plane and fly down to Cape Town and take care of her. There was absolutely no shortage of time. But my brain will often say, I don't have time to meditate today. Now do me a favor. How can I have time to fly all the way to Cape Town and spend several days down there, but I don't have time to spend 10 minutes? I think very often the I don't have time excuse comes from finding it difficult to prioritize your own needs and what's good for you, and thinking that everything else is more important than you are. But that's a choice, and that's a crazy choice. That's a choice that needs a lot of investigation. And please believe me, I suffer with it too. Often I find when I say I'm just going to do a little meditation now because I've got a wee gap, my brain says, I've got different things for you to do. Why don't you just quickly phone or do or whatever? And I don't get around to doing my meditation. That's a choice. And that was often a choice I didn't make consciously. So knowing that you want to do mindfulness, meditation, exercise, yoga, sitting in the sun, reading your book, whatever it is for your own mental well-being, I think is a very good example of something that often becomes a hard choice. But if you know why you want to do it, if you know who you want to become and what you want to achieve and where you're going, then it becomes a whole heap easier. Because I'm not just doing mindfulness today or going for a walk or a run or to gym or whatever. I'm not just doing that because it's a nice to have. I'm doing it because I know who I want to become. I know that I want to be sustainable in the world. I know that I want to be the very best version of myself. When you can do that, the choice becomes easy to make. We've talked a lot about food, alcohol, Netflix, or any other addiction, porn, sex, work. Let's talk about work. I struggle with this too because I can also be a bit of a workaholic. When you actually say it's enough, when you actually switch that computer off and go and have the next part of your life and have your evening for yourself, when you choose to switch your computer back on in the evening and do some work in the evening instead of just enjoying a little bit of rest and rejuvenation time, you are not choosing for your well-being. You are not even choosing for your productivity. There's a big price tag on that. I don't think we always know the cost to our nervous systems of being always on. I don't think we know how expensive it is to our well-being that we have to be available 24/7, that you've constantly got to pick up this damn phone and that you've constantly got to answer a million requests and pay attention and learn. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just want to scream and say, leave me alone. There's always another webinar and another meeting and another something I'm supposed to be attending. And so it's exhausting. And sometimes we have to choose to just say, today I choose my well-being. Today I choose stillness or emptiness or rest. And that's my choice and I'm going with it. And that requires impulse surfing when we have the idea to pick up our phone. You know, every single time we take a little look at this, we get a dopamine surge. And so there's a real dopamine withdrawal when we say to ourselves, I'm not going to look at my phone for a while. But in essence, when we choose to live without that little surge of dopamine, when we choose to actually manage our phone and draw a demarcation around work and say this far and no further, then we actually are choosing for our emotional and mental well-being. We're choosing and voting for ourselves and for our sustainability. When we go out to dinner with a loved one or a friend or something, and we choose to just quickly have a quick sneaker peek at our WhatsApps while they're looking at the menu and deciding what they want, we are choosing not to be present. And there's a price tag on that. So I'm not making it right or wrong. I'm just saying think about it and make your choice wisely. Yes, your inner wild child wants the dopamine, definitely. But is that dopamine going to take you where you want to go? Do you want to have quality relationships? Do you want to be a present human being who can have some quiet time in your own mind to just enjoy an evening of rest and connection and fun and socializing? Do you need the dopamine surge while you're busy with all that? Make the choice wisely. Then it comes to speaking up. Let's talk about actually speaking up. It's a choice. Are you going to open your mouth and speak your truth and say what you really feel? Or are you going to people please, to quote what you want to say in candy floss, or even not to say it at all, and to keep quiet and sweep everything under the rug so that you can keep this veneer going. And I'm not making that wrong. It might be exactly what you need to do in any given circumstance. But my invitation to you is to do it with choice, is to consciously decide, should I open my mouth and speak? I'm not impulse surfing. I am impulse surfing. I'm not reacting to my impulse to just vomit whatever I want to say out of my mouth. I'm making a deliberate choice to speak up and say what I need to say in a calm state so that I can really convey my emotions and my thoughts wisely. That's an impulse surf. Are you going to pussyfoot? Are you going to coat in candy floss? Are you going to people please and say yes when you actually want to say no? Or are you going to just lose your temper and flare at somebody because that's the impulse that you have, to just react? Or are you going to choose? And again, I want to bring all these things that we have talked about into this way of thinking about it. If you could imagine that it's like you're walking down a road and you come to a T-junction, but a few meters before the T-junction, you go blind, deaf and dumb. You go completely unconscious. And the next thing, you find yourself on the road to the left, headed off in that direction towards the left, and you're already there. But you weren't present, you weren't conscious, you weren't there at the choice point, at that T-junction. And so what we're trying to do here, what I'm inviting you to consider, is that you can literally be there at that T-junction. And you can say, am I going left or am I going right? Either way, it's your choice, and both choices are fine, but you want to choose. I just had a few other examples, and I waylaid myself, forgive me. But are you going to finish a task is another example. I often find myself, when I'm very distracted, like I am at the moment with all this moving and everything going on, am I going to actually finish this task and then move on to the next task? Or am I going to allow my distracted brain to suddenly bring up a new thing that I should quickly go and do? Am I going to allow myself to stay with a project and finish it? I don't know, but I don't want to suddenly find myself doing something else and having left this task half finished, so that I've got 10 files open in my computer and none of them are completed, because that is a total waste of my precious mental energy. And then one more example that I want to bring up where this choice points thing comes up. And this is one, I'm really talking from my own self here. These are choices I force myself to try and make, and I try my hardest to make consciously. But that's when I'm feeling tired. And maybe in the middle of the afternoon, if I've got a wee gap or a little bit of space, it doesn't often happen, but when I do, and I feel tired, am I going to go and lie down and just have a 10-minute cat nap? Or am I going to go and get a cup of coffee and a quick fix? Which one am I going to choose? Am I going to do some deep breathing, or go and jump on my trampoline outside my door, or get some sunshine on my face? Or am I going to go and get the coffee and just come back and power through? Am I going to rush when I need to, for example, go to the toilet? Am I going to give myself the time? Or am I going to, and excuse the term, but this literally is a term, am I going to power pee so that I can get back to my busy schedule? Which am I going to choose? Self-care, looking after me, doing what's good for my body and my mind, or am I going to go ahead and carry on with my busyness syndrome? These are choices that we get to make, and I'm inviting you to make them consciously. Not to suddenly find, oh my goodness, I power peed because I didn't have time to take my time, and I didn't make that choice. I literally landed up on the road to the left, rushing off back. and it wasn't conscious at all? Or am I going to slow things down, and be present in this moment, in this second where I have the chance to choose? So the invitation here is that you could make a list of the hardest choices you have to make. I've given you my list here today. By the way, I did the homework while I was preparing what I was going to say on this little solo podcast for you. And I am sharing mine, but maybe you can actually sit down. Some of them may resonate with you, but you may have a whole lot of your own, and actually write them down, because that's the first thing that's going to bring them into conscious awareness, is if you're alerted to them, if you know which choices are hard for you to make and which choices are being made in your autopilot. What's the benefit? Why on earth would you do this and go to this kind of trouble? I think it's fairly explanatory, fairly self-explanatory, that there is a loss of self-confidence when you don't make your choices consciously. For example, especially if you have said, I'm going to eat healthily this month, or I'm going to go to gym 5 times this week, and suddenly you find you broke the promise you made to yourself, or you don't follow up with the things that you said you were going to do for yourself, or you just don't vote for yourself, you just don't look after yourself. There is a cost, and there's a cost to your self-confidence, there's a cost to your well-being, there's a cost to your belief in yourself and belief in your own word. Just like if somebody says they're going to do something for you and they don't do it, you lose trust in them. So I think there's a real price tag here, because you lose trust in yourself if you don't do as you said you were going to do. The second cost and the second loss of benefit is the cost of living stuck, constantly on that hamster wheel, doing what you did yesterday and hoping for a different outcome. You're always going to get the same outcome if you take the same action. I mean, good old Einstein or his ex-wife or whoever it was that alerted us to that. If you take the same action, you'll get the same outcome. Every time a coconut, there's no way you could get any other outcome. And so I think when you don't make your choices consciously, you do find yourself stuck in a rut with frustration, with patterns, with habits that are taking you away from where you want to go, that are taking you away from what you want to achieve. And so, in conclusion, what I'm offering you here is the suggestion to shine the light of awareness, of your awareness, on the choices that you're making, on your habits, on the patterns that you have, and actually bring the light of awareness into these dark spaces in your unconscious mind, so that you are actually there, actually aware of what you're doing in any given moment. The second invitation is to slow things down, maybe even stop. Stop and reflect. Stop and see where you're going, and make sure you're going where you want to go. One skew choice, one little skew choice, and you land up on a totally different trajectory to the one you would have been on if you made a different choice. So actually slowing it down, actually investigating, and actually reflecting, and actually shining that torch, that spotlight of awareness, is the only way to enable yourself to break these patterns, to get out of your habitual living, to actually manifest the life you want to manifest, and the things you dream of, and the goals you set for yourself. But I think you have to really celebrate when you win. You're not going to get it right every time. Some choices are just going to be made unconsciously. And sometimes you are just going to watch that extra series or stay up too late or sit on Facebook for 3 hours when you actually have things to do, Instagram or whichever social media platform is your biggest distractor. Sometimes you're just going to be a victim to that. And other times you're going to win. You're going to be in charge. You're going to take control. And when you do, celebrate yourself. Slap yourself on the back and really honor what you've managed to achieve, because it isn't easy. And our brains are not wired to make it easy to change. Our brains hate change, in fact. They kind of think better the devil you know than the devil you don't know, because the brain can keep you safe if things stay the same. If you suddenly start doing everything differently, how does your brain know how to manage your body budget? How does your brain know how to keep you safe in this new scenario? So your brain is going to resist change at every turn. But you are the boss of your inner wild child and your inner dictator. You are the boss of your thoughts. You can override it. You can take charge and you can choose in every given moment. The suggestion is that you do it in the moments where you are not triggered, where you are not aroused. And that will make it 1,000,000 times easier eventually to do it when you are super aroused. So let's say someone cut you off in the traffic. You can practice choosing to surf the impulse, to pull up your middle finger and pull them a zap sign and hurl abuse at them. You can practice choosing to just take a few deep breaths and offer a smile to that person. I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying it's a choice. And you need to know which one is going to help you be the person you want to be. Which one is going to help you have the day you want to have. It's a choice, and only you know what choice you should make. When you are exhausted at the end of the hard work week, only you know which choice you should make about what you should do on Friday evening. Should you go for a walk with the dogs and enjoy the sunset? Or should you just curl up on the couch and watch Netflix and eat a pizza? I don't know. But if you can practice doing it when you're not so exhausted, when you're not so triggered, then it will become 1,000,000 times easier to make your choices consciously when you're either exhausted or super aroused. But I want you to know, your ability to choose is your superpower. Use it wisely, and don't give the steering wheel of your life to your autopilot. Not a good idea. Keep the steering wheel of your life in your hands, because this is your precious life. And every minute of this life is a treat, is a treasure, is precious. And once it's passed, it will never come back again. So choose wisely how you're going to spend it. Choose wisely what consequences, what price tags you're willing to pay, because it's your precious life. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely rest of the day, choosing every step of the way. Bye for now. Please push the subscribe button so that you can be alerted when future episodes are available. Thank you for listening.